First of all, I started sailing on the River Thames, Kingston upon Thames, if anybody knows it. There's a club called Thamesis. And without going into too much detail, basically I was 7, 8 years old, and my father was in the Navy and was away at sea, and my mum wanted to make sure I did something, in the school holidays. Saw there was a sailing club there, kindly took me over there, met some people, and I started crewing in a cadet, which I did for a while on the Thames. And then my older brother, who's nearly 4 years older than me, saw me doing it, thought it looked quite cool, and one day I couldn't sail, so he sailed instead of me and got immediately hooked. And then he started steering a cadet and I crewed him. And true story, I mean, he subsequently went to 4 Olympics and won various world championships and steered the America's Cup boat. But I can assure you, when we started sailing, the two of us, with me crewing, him helming, I can clearly remember we sailed one complete season, which was in those days mostly Easter and the summer holidays, where we came last in every single race. And there was a classic moment, I don't know if it was the end of that season or the beginning of the next season, we started sailing, we sailed on Saturday afternoons, and we did this race, terribly light winds, cheating the tide, just like in Salcombe. And somehow we managed to cross the finishing line first. I clearly remember it. I was so excited. And we were both wearing shorts. And I remember I slapped him on his sort of thigh saying, "Well done." And he punched me. Clearly he was a bit wound up of the tension of concentration on water. Anyway, that's what happened. I then sailed cadets right the way through to 18 or 17, whatever it was in those days. Then I didn't sail for about 18 months because I went travelling after leaving school, came back, and my dad had bought an Ilka, or what's called laser then, and he said he couldn't sail it. He was too old, couldn't do it. Why didn't I have a go in it? And I had a go in it, took it, put it on the top of my old Mini, on top of a mattress, took it up to Queen Mary's Sailing Club, chucked it in the water, and there was an oat meeting, and I sailed in the oat meeting, and I think there were 80 boats, and somehow I came third, God knows how, and got hooked, and I loved it because I loved the one design concept, and it was you against the other people. It was just straightforward sailing. You didn't need a crew, all these obvious things, but this is 1975, and I managed to win the national championships that year. First time out, so that got me really enthralled. So, in my then 1 week holiday that I had from work, I did those championships, and then over the next few years, up until 1980, I sailed the laser, and switched to the fin because the laser wasn't Olympic, and believe it or not, performance sailcraft who make the laser declined the opportunity to become an Olympic class in those days, which is quite interesting to think about now. So I had to try, if I wanted to go for the Olympics, I had to try something else. I was too big for the 470, I was too small for the fin, and too poor for anything else. But I went for the fin and wore two big weight jackets and pumped a lot of weight, and managed to get to a great weight of 85 kilos, which is way too light. But I managed to do okay. I came 8th in the world, won the pre-Olympics, but got beaten in the Olympic trials, well beaten by Mike McIntyre, who went on to come 7th in the fin, but 4 years later won the gold in the star. Between all that, I sailed offshore, managed to win the Fastnet race in 1993 as the helmsman of a boat called Eagle, which was an amazing experience. But I started having a look at laser sailing again, and wish I'd started sailing one again earlier and doing the master circuit, which is what I now do. And I've already told you about the solo, how it came into my life, and I'm very glad it does, or has, because we have excellent club sailing at Salcombe. We probably get between 15, 22 boats out on a Saturday afternoon. Some pretty good sailors, such as Tim Fells, Will Henderson, Ollie Turner, and many others those people have done very well in other classes, never mind the solo. So I've already mentioned Mike Hicks and Ian McGregor, Chris Cleaves, Simon Dobson. I could go on. It's a lovely club environment, and I thoroughly enjoy sailing the solo. Done the national championships about 7 times over those 15 years. That's been good fun. Good competition. You know, any class that has 100 boats on the start line, and it is a challenge. I then stopped sailing, really, sailed with mates on sort of cruises and stuff like that, before getting into match racing, which I thoroughly enjoyed and did pretty well, and then managed to qualify for the World Match Racing Championships, which is the top 10 in the world. I'm pleased to say I came last, 10th in Australia, but I did manage to beat people like Gilmore and Coots and Kay occasionally. And then it's very useful to have that background in your sailing experience. And then I went to started sailing in Etchells, which I've really enjoyed, but again, very expensive to do. But I had 2 mates who I sailed with, 2 big mates, one of which was a chap called Mel Coleman, who you may not know, who was married to Annabel Croft, but sadly died last year very suddenly. But we had some great results and great fun sailing at the World Championships in Etchells, which is 31 foot long, and on the 2 of the World Championships we sailed in there were over 100 boats, which is pretty exciting. Started sailing a solo, I think, about 15 years ago, maybe longer. It seems shorter actually, as most things do now. It all came about because in Salcombe during our regatta week, a group of us used to sell lasers, and some bright spark, mentioning no names, decided that there were too many people sailing in the afternoon, so they changed the laser start to the morning. Well, myself and the other guys, one of which is Ian McGregor, the other being Mike Hicks, and a few other people, said, well, we like sailing in the afternoon, so we switched to the solo. I actually can't remember. I bought a second-hand boat and then went on to buy probably about 3 or 4 boats over the last 15 years from Dave Winder. I have a Winder 2, which people now tell me is not the best one, but I think it is fine. It's probably not best for... I sail with a north sail most of the time, and I find that is user-friendly. I think there are a number of ways of skinning that particular cat. The hide sails and the Andy Davis's HD sails are excellent as well. You just have to use it in a different way. The sail allows me to sail higher than I would naturally sail. That's just my view. And as I've already said, there are a number of ways of actually achieving the same result. Downwind in the harbour is crucial. We probably spend, I'm going to make an estimation, 70% of the time off wind, not necessarily on the run, but reaching or fetching rather than on the wind. Therefore, your technique is very, very important. And if I take downwind in what is normal sailing conditions, which is probably around 10 knots most of the time, it's very obvious and clear that you need to keep as still as possible, move the tiller, therefore the rudder, as little as possible, and get your weight fairly forward in the light. When the wind pipes up a bit, I find that I probably work the boat a little bit more than most people because I'm a laser sailor. As soon as you get any waves, you can use them. You don't get the same result as you do with a laser, but you can still affect pretty good gains. You know, often people, because of the benefit of staying static in the light, when it starts getting a little bit windier and a bit wavier, people, I think, perhaps aren't as nippy or quick to alter the way they're sailing the boat. Solo sailing. Sailing in the harbour and sailing at sea are two different things, as most people would appreciate. In the harbour we have flat water and a lot of tide, as I've already mentioned, whereas at sea you obviously have wave action. That's more of a drastic change when I'm sailing a laser, but the solo still requires a different technique. In the harbour, it's a lot of stop and starting because you hit tide or you get tide. Wind shifts are dramatic sometimes with the wind in the southeast or the northwest. If the wind blows, as it often does, from the west or the south or the east, we have pretty good strict clear wind, but that's a relative term. It's a very tricky place. It's probably unique. We have strong tides and a sort of racing area which has a lot of, I should put it, nooks and crannies, back eddies, sandbanks, rocks, just about anything you think of, and which is an interesting challenge and very different from sailing at sea. I tend, as do my laser sailing friends who are sailing solo, we tend to sail more by the lee if we can. We don't jibe so quickly. Mike Hicks and I particularly, we find this pays off, so we go with a looser vang downwind than perhaps even normal and sail more by the lee, because you can jibe too much. There's so many wind shifts. It's pretty unnatural. But that doesn't always work, but I find it often works and quite enjoy it. What I should have is the extended vang to get myself more projected area and allow the boom to go even further forward. I might get around to doing that. My way of sailing in the harbour upwind is I would probably sail in a higher mode, as people listening to the America's Cup commentary recently would probably fully appreciate now more than they used to, where you basically sail closer to the wind than you would at sea. The reason why you do this is you're cheating the tide, upwind against the tide, and also downwind where you just want to stay in the tide, and you can afford to sail higher than you would normally. Always keeping the boat as flat as possible, just like you would anywhere else, but that's how I sail. I focus more on being able to tack and jibe well, so I probably sail with less vang tension, particularly when we're tacking against the tide. Otherwise you beat your head up too much, bashing your head and your shoulders, because you're literally tacking certainly every minute, but depending on if it's spring tide. Very one design. I think it's become more one design over the years I've been sailing it. All the boats at the Nationals are pretty competitive. It's down to the people in them. Good crack, good fun. The other thing we've enjoyed doing is going to the Nations Cup, been twice to Karnak and twice to Garda. And we're thinking about going to Como later this year.